Promise. Everybody on? Are you on? Is Amy on?
No.
Amy, y'all need to turn on your microphone. Let me call to order the meeting of the Highlands Town Board of Commissioners for October 17th, 2024. We always begin our meetings with a moment of silence in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I would like for us to take a moment. We lost a great Highlander this week, Tucker Chambers. Tucker used to be here and let us know his feelings about a lot of things. And he was always here in the audience. And I just would like for us to keep the Chambers family and Jeannie in our thoughts, because Tucker was a character for Highlands and he will be missed. His influence and his activities that he committed to make this a better community. Also, I want us to be mindful of the victims of Hurricane Helene in Western Carolina. We are really blessed that we have been able to get the town back up and running. And there are so many communities and mayors and council people and commissioners and county commissioners and first responders who are really struggling to get their communities up and running. And that will not take just a few weeks. You're talking about years of commitment to rebuild some of these communities. So would you join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. Now, if we'll all stand for the pledge, I believe you. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. Our next item will be the statement of conflict of interest, which is posted in our agenda. I just call to attention for our commissioners that statement that we are very familiar with, and of course should disclose any conflicts on any voting matter that we have before the board. The next item, number 4, will be the public comment period. So I would invite anyone who would like to make a public comment to come to the front, and please state your name and make a comment if you would like. And hopefully the comments will be 3 minutes or so. So do we have anybody that'd like to make a public comment tonight? Hearing none, we will now move on to item number 5, and that is to review and approve the agenda. Do we have any changes or additions to the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda is presented.
Second.
Second, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Thank you. The next item, number 6, will be the approval of the September 5th special meeting minutes. Are there any changes or corrections to those minutes?
Move to be approved.
Second.
All in favor, please raise your hand, signify by saying aye. Thank you. The next would be the approval of the September 19th regular meeting minutes. Do we have any changes or corrections to those minutes?
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Thank you very much. Our next item will be the report, starting with the mayor's report. So let me go ahead and get started with my reports. And so much of my report is just one big thank you to everyone as we had to struggle and address with, Hurricane Helene. And I want to, of course, thank the town staff and employees. And I've already said this once, but I want to kind of emphasize this. I remember that Thursday night when the storm was coming, I was really floored that afternoon. Governor Cooper had called me and said, "Are you ready? And you have any needs?" And I said, "No, Governor, we appreciate your mobilization and everything." But I remember sitting through that hurricane at night, and I got up. It was not even light yet. And I said, "Well, I've got to get to the town hall. I'll probably be the only person there. So I'll just have to open it up and we'll see where we are with this storm." So I get there about 7:15 thinking, yep, I'm the person. And I used the code to go into the front door because it automatically opens at 8. I walk into the office and there's Frances Beck at the front taking phone calls already at 7:15. Nobody asked her to do that, and she wasn't required to do it, but she knew that there was a need and came in and stayed until dark. And our employees all did that. And Josh didn't have to ask them, "Well, stay and work some more." Everybody sprung into action, and every one of our employees knew this was not business as usual, and they all stepped forward and did a wonderful duty and service to this town. So I want to just thank all of the employees. I can't name every one of them, of course, but I do appreciate, their long-term work and service. And now some of them need to get a little rest and recovery, which they've been doing this past week. The other group, I appreciate the county and the services of our emergency management department. Warren Cabe and the county worked very closely with us. I remember early in the week after we were recovering, here comes Gary Shields, the chairman of the Macon County Board, and Derek Rowland, the county manager, walking into Josh's office and said, "What do you guys need? How can we help?" And I appreciate what they did. I want to also thank the business community. And let me just give you an example of that. I know I'd been writing about we need a Motel 6 here because if we have a major storm, where will the workers, the linemen, and everybody go when we're getting power back up? Well, sure enough, we were having to call in extra crews from all over the United States. And Lamar had actually booked rooms in Dillard for these groups. And lo and behold, the folks at Park Hole, Maine, 200 Maine, and even Trailborn, at our new hotel, they all came in and said, "How can we help?" And we said, "Well, we need rooms." And they stepped forward and said, "You've got them." And that really made a big difference because those crews weren't having to travel 106, which was problematic. So I appreciate that. And then there were so many businesses and the chamber that stepped up, and they had last week a kind of an employee appreciation lunch right here to just show their appreciation for what our employees did. And then I cannot begin to name all the nonprofits that have pitched in, and I know that Commissioner Stigler will be giving an update on that in just a minute. The state response, one of the things that kind of surprised me was, and I'm an old Signal Corpsman, and in the Signal Corps, when they talk about if you're going to war or battle, the first thing you attack is the communications of your enemy, and then you can proceed. Well, Helene was our enemy, and what she did was knock out all communications. I mean, our cell phone issues throughout Western Carolina and so forth. And if she was fighting a battle, it worked beautifully because for several days, we were just hamstrung on how to communicate with people and had to resort to some old technology, something we need to address in Highlands, in Macon County, and throughout Western Carolina in the future about how we have redundancy in our communication system. And hopefully the state can pitch in and help with that too. Also, let me just go over some other things. FEMA. We've had a group of FEMA staff people here for the last 2 weeks, and they will be at the police station tomorrow, finally wrapping up and taking any FEMA claims. And they have been taking FEMA claims by our local people here in Macon County and so forth. So let me just give you, though, kind of an overview. I just got this email of what we're facing with DOT in Western Carolina. And, our Regional Planning Commission just put this out. There are 533 roads that have been closed, state roads. 83 are primary state roads. There's 7,189 damaged sites, 640 bridges that have either been damaged and some of them lost and washed out, 684 culverts that need repair. And then they have deployed 1,400 workers and 900 pieces of heavy equipment to address all these concerns. But some people are concerned about, well, when are they going to get to the tree debris on the roads and so forth? They will get to them, but they are overwhelmed right now with things that have to be done. So I hope people will be patient with our DOT folks. They've got more than a heavy load that they'll have to be addressing in the coming months and even into several years, I suspect. The other thing I wanted to go over, a few more things, is Big Bear Pen. That contractor was about to be finished with paving, and then a few hours before they could complete it, the rains came and never stopped. They resumed paving today, and I talked to the head guy, and he says that they'll be doing some cleanup stuff tomorrow or next couple of days, and then they will be completely out and Bear Pen will be completed. I will say it held up very well with the drainage during the storm. And then I wanted to just go over a couple of other things. I will be going to the groundbreaking of the Franklin High School tomorrow at 10 o'clock. And then on October 23rd, we will have a groundbreaking at the Highlands School for the project that has been funded for the improvements, the pre-K and the improvements at the Highlands School. And I'll be at both of those. And then finally, I want to say this. I'm not talking about politics. During this election season, everybody has their opinion. But I did go and vote today. And I will tell you, I voted for the 1/4 cent or 1/4 penny increase in sales tax in Macon County. That would take the sales tax rate from 6.75 cents to 7 cents. The way that legislation is written or referendum is written, it would generate $2 million a year. And it could be directed toward educational, operational, and capital improvements. And I just will say, I fully support that, and I hope that that becomes a reality so we can provide the funding to create a first-rate educational system in Macon County and in Highlands. So that's my report, and I will now turn it over to the commissioners. And Commissioner Steele?
Sure. I've got a couple things here. First off, I want to say on Wednesday, October 9th, several of us commissioners attended a workshop that was hosted by the Highlands Cashiers Health Foundation. And what they did is pulled community leaders together from various organizations. So in total, they didn't know what to expect or who was going to attend, but they had over 50 people show up that represented what I estimate 30 organizations or so working on relief efforts in Western North Carolina. So the purpose of that meeting was for each organization to share specifics as to what they're working on, and then identify areas that where we could be more efficient and eliminate some redundancies. So it was a great meeting. A second meeting is going to be held on Wednesday, October 23rd from 1 to 2 p.m. at the community building. And so I'd really like to thank Charlotte Muir with the Highlands Cashiers Health Foundation, TJ Smith from the International Friendship Center, and Leslie Manning from Pisgah Legal Services for acting as facilitators during that meeting. So great meeting, and everybody is welcome to attend the second one on October 23rd. And then the next thing I just wanted to mention was I just want to comment on an observation I had, and that is just I wanted to talk about briefly our firemen, both the paid and volunteers. So during the aftermath of the storm, like everybody else, I didn't have cell phone service or internet access. So for those few days, I would take my laptop and I would go up to the fire department and sit there in the classroom and make phone calls and also send emails. So in the couple hours that I logged sitting in the fire department, I just want to say that I'm not only impressed with how the new facility benefited the fire department, but I was most impressed with the passion that those guys have for what they do. And so, like, I sat there, and whether it was like I overheard some emergency call that came in, or whether it was just one of the many welfare checks that they did, especially for a friend of mine, like just being able to sit there and witness that, in the sense of urgency that all those guys have. And again, the passion for what they do is it's a well-oiled machine, and it's something that I mean, I always sort of appreciated, but I never got to see firsthand. So, again, I just want to say that our fire department, again, is a well-oiled machine. Witnessing that is impressive and really made me as a commissioner proud. So, it's always easy to forget that in events like that all of those guys at the fire department, and whether it's the mayor making, announcements to the community, they all have families and they all have homes of their own that they're dealing with the same things that everybody else is dealing with. But again, they're out serving our community, and while everybody else is dealing with their own issues. So, again, I just want to thank all of our firemen, and I definitely want to thank the leadership of our fire chief, Ryan Gerhardt. And then finally, Mayor, what I wanted to thank you for is just not giving up on the communication during this storm. And you certainly took advantage of what was available at the time. So I can assure you, I'm sure that there's a Starlink subscription in our future. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
But I think during and after that storm, you did as well as anybody could do, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay. Any other reports or updates?
Between the two of you, you covered it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Now, our town manager has his report, and he has some bad news to report to us tonight. So, Josh?
Well, I'll start off with echoing what the mayor and Brian said. The storm response, the town crews, public works, fire, police, the water plant operators, the sewer plant operators, everybody knows the drill, when it comes to extreme weather. We know what can happen. I talked to Warren Cade, repeatedly throughout the days after the storm hit. And he said, Josh, you can't prepare for a storm like this because it's a once in a lifetime, storm event. Thank God we didn't get it as bad as some of the others around us. We were very fortunate. But I was very proud of our staff and how they reacted on the Friday when all 4 corridors into Highlands was blocked. And I don't know how Francis, and Mike Beck made it in, but they did. Out of persistence, they finally made it up Buck Creek, I think. It was somebody cutting trees in front of them. Got in to answer the phones, which was key. Then obviously the communication, went down about 12:30 and, didn't really know what was going on. So, but our crews were here. The majority of them were already here overnight. They were ready, to respond. And I will say, what Brian said about the fire department, this new building is unbelievable. It's set up, it's got plenty of room. It's set up perfect for a command center when something like this happens. I thank each and every one of them from the volunteers to the full-time. But, the county, sent up different representatives from, I know, Cowee, Mountain Valley, Clark's Chapel, Colossagia. All those fire departments sent representatives up, whether it would be to cook meals for the crews or go out and do wellness checks or whatever that may be. They all chipped in there and that, provided a great command center for that. And I see that in the future, regardless of the storm. It just gives a facility where everybody can get together and have meetings. Monday, Tuesday, I noticed the county was there, the inspections department was there. They were going around doing inspections to see damage reports and things like that for the different homes and properties. And they had a debriefing there. It's really a wonderful facility. I'd like to thank the police department. They had the forethought to have extra staff on duty, and they actually had a place to stay here overnight, so that was great. So they were plenty of the officers here to do wellness checks inside the city limits. And I know there were a ton of wellness checks outside the city limits that the fire department handled, which was great. I want to thank Dawn James. Dawn run the water plant the entire time. She didn't leave all weekend long. She was down there by herself. If you recall, the last 2 budget years, we installed a tremendous amount of generators at all the water pump stations all around town. So the majority of those did work really well and pump water into those areas of town. So the majority of town, from what I can understand, had water throughout the entire storm, which was key. Those had just been put on those pump stations the last 2 years, or we wouldn't have any water around town. So, and with Dawn continuing to run the plant with that generator down there, which is a massive generator to run that water plant, which is aging. So it's something that Lamar and I have been talking about. We need to look at that for future budget, just so everybody knows. But anyway, I would also like to thank Carl Gillespie. He was able to give us our House representative from Macon County. He was able to give us some contacts to Phillips and Jordan to get some electric crews in here. They were able to send 4 crews in from the Northeast, and then we had 2 from Service Electric, which typically responds to our storms out of East Tennessee. Those 6 crews were able to come in here in 3 days, put the majority of the power back on and relieve our crews. So that was great. So just wanted to say that. I think it was a great response. Obviously the communication, falling down, we were lucky to have our Wi-Fi that stayed up at Town Hall and the rec park and the fire department. So that was great. Now on to the bad news the mayor had mentioned. I was contacted this afternoon from the North Carolina Department of Transportation. They've been wrestling with repairs to 106. They've had the 1 lane open since early the week after they shut it down after the storm. The soil nail plan that they were looking to do was not successful, so they're going to have to shut the entire road down starting Saturday morning at 7 a.m. This Saturday morning at 7 a.m. They're going to get out some public releases. About to shut down all of 106 from Turtle Pond Road down to Osage Overlook. They're going to have to go in there and actually tear out all the drainage, put new drainage in, and then go back with some kind of a stone layer, it sounds like, within that void. And so it's closed indefinitely till they get it finished. So we have no idea how long that's going to be.
There's multiple drainage places in it?
No, it's the one main one. They're actually doing a repair with soil nails on down from this.
Okay.
But the main slough where they lost the lane, to go in there. It was all field dirt from probably the forties, and there was a man-made box culvert, they said it was in there, that had damage to it. So they were gonna have to go back in and replace the drainage pipe, but then they were gonna have to go back in, with stone and build all that back up. So they've had engineers from the DOT in here 3 different days trying to figure out a plan. And so they contacted us this afternoon and said that they would be shutting it down 7 a.m. Saturday morning. So, that means tractor trailers. I don't know how they're gonna deliver supplies. I'm assuming the DOT will be, posting some notifications on how to get supplies in here. So that's what we're looking at for the next several weeks, looks like.
And I'm hoping we can coordinate with different groups like the chamber and get the word out. We're still open for business in this critical leaf season time, but that 106 really becomes a problem for many people. And maybe we can get the word out that there are alternative ways of getting to.
So the more information we receive,
Yeah.
we'll definitely try to get that out and get it to the chamber and everywhere we can to get the information out.
Can I just make a comment?
Sure.
All those generators on our water plants needed fuel. He had guys running
Yes.
around filling those things up.
Yep.
Doc did it.
Doc did a
Yeah,
great
Doc
job.
Wilson, I mean, without Doc
Without
Wilson,
Doc, I don't know what we'd
the
have done.
generators wouldn't have stayed running that long. I mean, he had Caleb Bowers going around and he went to every one of them, filling them up, multiple times. And so, yeah, without Doc and his workers.
Yeah, and I'll say this too. I wanted to follow up. We have a lot of equipment, emergency equipment here. And I've heard some people, why do you need all that stuff? You don't really use it all the time. That's true. We don't. But when you need it, for example, that morning, Friday, where it's still flooding and everything, Chief Allen had this little 4-wheeler thing that could get through the water and get around. And we were looking at the damage and trying to, let people know about the traffic situation. But, does she use that every day? No, but when you got to have it, it needs to be there available. And that's why we have to have all of that equipment to be prepared for these kind of emergency
It's
situations.
also why we have a generous fund balance, because people will come if you write them a check. All those
Yes.
people, guys from Connecticut that came and everywhere else, they only come if they know they're gonna get paid right away.
And I like to, I will just say this too, confession. I always like to get on Duke Energy's case, and take shots at them. And in this case, when we lost that transmission line from Duke, their representative, Joey Wilson, who worked with our crews and everything, Joey and his group did some extraordinary things to get that line, that system back up. So we were able to start with powering up downtown on Monday afternoon and then from there. But Joey and Duke, really helped us out tremendously by getting that transmission back to us. And we are working on a redundancy, even on that. We're making good progress on it, but that's why we want to do those kind of things. So we have options down the road. But we're making progress on it.
I had one other question for Josh, and it's not Helene related. It's been about a year since we gave money to DOT for the little bear pin traffic light. We heard anything about that?
So.
I mean, I realize DOT has other things on their mind right now, but,
Yes, so the equipment was backordered, and they said that some of that equipment was taking months and months to get. They told us that up front, but they were supposed to have it by May, and it never came.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
this past May, it never did come in. So the last I contacted them, they said it's in the works, but they don't have everything together now. Everything they've got going on now, it may not happen until this May. But that was the last that we heard the equipment was back ordered.
Okay, I thought it was May. That's why I wondered why we hadn't
And while we're
seen it
updating,
yet.
We're way behind. We did get the crosswalks.
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
That was almost 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years.
yeah.
We had paid to have him come in and do the slash crosswalks. I think, Commissioner Dodson had brought that up, that he'd like to, see that. They're definitely more visible. A lot of the ones we had painted, the paint was getting hard to get, the brick colored paint, and then it didn't last very long. It faded. So these stripes, thermo paint, which is reflective, are a lot better. And we've actually gave them a list of additional ones we would like. that we found, along the way after they, striped. So we're hoping that they come back and get those.
And while we're updating, Mirror Lake, that first phase with the Improvement Association, we've been told that the dredging company that will do that, they'll be staging possibly in 2 weeks.
Supposed to already been here, the
Yeah,
storm put them
but
behind,
just
so
put them behind.
it's like around 2 weeks, they'll be coming in to set the dredging.
One more, the, parking striping in front of the Episcopal Church, we're gonna do that or spring or get somebody to do that?
Yes, we're going to do that.
Okay.
No schedule at this point, but we are going to do that.
I didn't know whether we could do it in the winter time or we had to wait till spring.
At this point, we'd probably wait till spring, but we kind of waited till their, construction, their new island and everything got, installed. So, we'll definitely be getting that. Lamar and I had talked about how many and how they're to be laid out and all that, but we didn't get it striped yet.
Well, the new one was striped, but none of the old area was striped.
Right.
And how about the 2 trees in the new island area?
I think Jeff can,
They're supposed to be planted before Christmas.
Okay,
We were waiting, because we couldn't get that size tree this late in the year, so we have to wait for all the leaves to drop so they can dig them.
okay.
All right. Shall we now move on to the consent agenda? Any questions concerning the consent agenda?
Motion to approve is presented.
Second, all in favor, please signify by raising your hand, saying aye. Thank you. All right, our next item will be the 150th anniversary celebration. Kay McCann of the Chamber. But Kay, before you get started, let me just put some reference here. I'd met with Kay and her staff about planning this a while back, several months ago. One of the things you'll see tonight is a logo that they went back and proposed after Josh and I looked at the logo that had been submitted. And our feeling was that it needed to have maybe the town logo on it. I know there might be some questions about that, but that came from me and it came from Josh. So just to set the record straight, okay? Go
Yeah,
ahead, Kay.
no problem. So, first of all, before we get started, I want to reiterate a lot of things that have been said here tonight. I can't thank you enough for the town leadership, our police department, our fire department. Getting through what we just went through was amazing. We, worked together, the community came together, and it was huge. Without your leadership, it could have been much worse. So really appreciate that. Now on to the fun part. We turn 150 next year. So a really big deal for Highlands, and we're excited about some of the things that we have planned. We've been working very closely with the Highlands Historical Society, obviously, and invited Pat to come in. He has some great suggestions for some things that we could do. Many of our organizations here in town have expressed that they will be doing some type of programming based around the 150th anniversary. Hopefully you received the information that I sent this afternoon, just some basics of what we have planned for 2025 for that celebration. The 2 things that I need to talk to you about tonight that has to deal with signage. The first one, I think it was actually Pat's suggestion when we were, the last time we got together. We have all of our signs leading into town, and we would like to put a small sign on the top, on the side, someplace that just simply says, we don't have a design, we need the approval first, is celebrating 150 years. Maybe putting the date on there, whatever, we'll work with the designer and share it with you guys. But just to let people know that in 2025, we've been here for 150 years. So if you could talk about that, and also our pole banners in town, we don't have a whole lot of them, but I know they're over closer to the park and stuff that we could have something designed with the logo and simply, again, same thing, celebrating 150 years, just to let our residents and our visitors know that it's been 150 years and it's a party for the whole year because we've been here a long time and we're old. Many other things are going on. We're focusing our experience guide next year on that. We're going to do a poster artwork contest. We're going to work with the Bascom on that. Again, something we can have out for the whole year. We want to do a kickoff celebration and invite whoever the new governor is in, and obviously our local representatives in, and community members, and we'll do this in April. And just kind of kick off the year, just to say this is a celebration year. We're going to work with the American Legion on something probably in Veterans Park. I've been talking to them. We're going to, like, on the chamber website, have a timeline. We've been working with Rand Schaffner on that, of kind of for each decade, what are the really great things that have been happening in Highlands, and focusing on that. We've obviously will ask for a proclamation from the town, from the governor on it. We've talked with the Highlands Cashers Land Trust, 150 trees, do they want to give them away or use them as a fundraiser, whatever, but they have agreed they're going to do something with that. More trees are always a good thing. The Historical Society is going to do a Living Museum Day, which will be a great addition. We're working on a documentary short film. I am not going to promise that is going to happen. That is quite an undertaking, and we are trying to reuse a lot of videos that have been shot here in Highlands and combine them all into one to kind of give a big picture. It's quite an undertaking, but we're hoping we can get it finished before the end of 2025. Historical Society has come up with a wonderful history walking tour where we can, and they are actually working with Western Carolina University on having a plaque on some of our historical buildings that are downtown, and talking about what they used to be, and have a little picture on the plaque of what this used to be, the general store or the hardware store, or this is where the soda fountain was, or whatever, to see that old picture and just a little history there where people could go around town and see those. The Historical Society is also planning a home tour of some of our older homes here in Highlands, and they're going to do that in June. They also had a great idea of doing pop-up historical exhibits. They have exhibits that they've done about, Highlands Country Club, about the arts in town, our playhouse, the players group that is so old, and, where could we display those things around town throughout the year? So we're going to be able to reuse some of those exhibits, which will be a great use of those. And of course, our Highlands Heritage Jamboree that we do every year. We just had it last Saturday, and we're going to pull out all the stops on that and have square dancers and cloggers, and of course a little moonshine to give away. And the Historical Society brings items out from the exhibits and has them there in the park, and we're going to expand that to really celebrate us being here for 150 years. So the main things I would like for you to help with tonight is, are you okay with us adding a little something to those signs coming into town, just to let people know that 2025 is a really important year to us? And, obviously we'll have a designer draw something up and we can share it with you. And then can we also do the pole banners with a celebration of 150 years?
I certainly don't have a problem with it.
Yeah,
The,
I don't either.
the pole banners where they are on Pine Street, or you want to put them elsewhere?
No, they're just in the places they are already.
We've already got a
Yeah.
frame for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and just, we'll have a design. I
Oh,
believe
no.
you guys already received this of kind of like our 150th, Highlands, and it's a play off of the town logo. And just, to point out that it's 150 years, the Historical Society will be using that. Anyone that does anything based around the 150th celebration would get this logo so that it, you can kind of see all the different places that it's popping up.
The signs on the entryway signs, permanent signs, or there for a year, or what do you think?
I was just thinking about a year, but then I got to thinking about it and it's, I haven't had the conversation with Josh. Do we have new signs coming into town that give the year we were founded and, stating that, or is it just an addition?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's open for conversation about what we could do. But I think it's just a really important year and something that we need to celebrate and let people know that, 150 years is a long time.
Yeah, we had a 100-year celebration.
Mhm.
I don't know, I just didn't know whether we were talking about new signs.
The
permanent
original
signs,
thought
or-
was, I think what Pat had suggested, you can help out here, is that we could have something that would be like on the side or on the top, and it's like an addition to the sign that's
Yeah.
there,
I
that
thought-
just like celebrating 150
Yeah,
years.
and I didn't see it forever, just for the
Yeah,
year.
just like for
Yeah.
the year, January
Yeah.
through December or something. Yeah.
Okay. And I guess we got 4 of them.
Yes,
Mhm.
yeah. So we
No, I-
have a designer that like came up with the logo and stuff, so we can come up with something and,
Just show
run
us.
it past
Yeah,
you
just
guys.
come, just show us what it looks like.
Yes,
Show me,
yeah.
that'd be great.
Big enough
But I mean, there's
big
no
enough
sense
that
in
you can
paying
read
for
it,
the
too.
designer until we know we can do it. So,
Big enough that we can see it too.
yeah, absolutely. It's just if you're willing to do that, I'm happy to hire, we've got a great designer.
Yeah.
She can come up with something. She's the one that developed the logo for us and just, what we could put on there. And then we'll use the same type of imagery on the pole banners as well. You want the consistency in the branding. And just, again, the celebrating 150 years, maybe the logo. We'll get Ansley started on that.
Perfect.
And
I'm
I'm fine.
I
Sounds
agree.
good.
Okay,
consensus.
all right.
Yeah.
Sounds great. Good.
You're not asking us for money.
No, no.
Good. Okay. All right. Shall we move on to the next item? It's the lease. Okay. We're going to do the Chamber of Commerce building lease is next. You'd like to sit down? We'll talk about it. Give you some history. It was up for renewal. We went through a whole process last year. We were asking at one time for support of the bathrooms. That didn't seem to be something that the chamber is willing to do. Then we talked about.
Well, correction.
Yeah.
That was something the county attorney said we couldn't do.
Yeah, chamber was willing to
I
do
will,
it.
I will say.
We're willing to
Okay, yeah,
help, but,
Okay. I don't agree with the county attorney.
well,
okay?
that's okay, but that's what the
Well,
attorney said and I have to
I
go
don't
by
think
that.
our attorney agrees with it either. And
They can argue it out.
well, we might have to. But with that said, bathrooms went off the board, leasing went off the board. So now we're back to where we had a 1-year temporary lease. We're now back to the renewal, which Josh will come up in December.
December 8th.
So we have this month and next month to resolve this. So what is the feeling of the board?
I will go back to my original statement, and I'm partial here because I was the chairman of the chamber when that building was accepted, and the intention of the individual that donated the that building. It was not to be, it was not like a income maker for the town. It was solely to go to the Chamber of Commerce. So I don't care whether, if we want to have our attorney argue with the county attorney over restroom cleaning fees, I'm fine with that. But I'm still steadfast on the fact that the building was meant to be what it was. The chamber put a lot of money into that building, and I don't want the building as far as the town is concerned personally.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Well, I personally think that whether we want it or not, it's a town building. And I think the value of the building, there is value to being there. I think maybe our attorney and the county attorney ought to have some discussion as to whether or not rent is a viable option. And I'd like to see us make good and valuable use of the building, if possible, certainly for the chamber. But as far as the building is concerned, I think it needs to be considered into a lease.
Well, I agree with that. I know that the problem wasn't the Visit Highlands lease. It was the chamber claiming that they didn't have the money to be able to put in the 20%.
And we still don't.
And I guess
I
I
mean, that
don't,
hasn't changed.
I know, but I don't understand that. I look at your 990 and you make $100,000 or something like that. We're talking about $8,000. So I don't understand. And if you put in utilities at 20%, you're talking still, 8.5 or something like that. So,
Right.
and I guess I don't understand it out of $100,000. And I looked up retail rent for space.
Mhm.
Okay. Office space may go for, 15% of your income. Retail goes for 5 to 10% of your income. So if you're talking about 8%, you're talking about like 8% because you make $100,000. So I don't think it's unreasonable to do that. I'm just not sure why the chamber doesn't think that they can afford.
Where did the $8,000 come from? I'm just confused there.
We were talking about $40,000 a year because we were basing it on what the cost of and that comes out to, I don't know exactly how big the building is, but somewhere in the neighborhood of about $20 a square foot, which is for office space is pretty reasonable.
Extraordinarily reasonable.
Okay, I don't know what it is, but just from what I've learned is it's about reasonable. The 8% came from the chamber because they use 20% of the space or something like that. So they're very strict about what goes towards Visit Highlands of the room tax money. And then what the chamber pays for and what they use in the way of personnel and space and all the rest of that stuff. And so I think they came up with a 20%, correct me if I'm wrong.
It's like an 80 and 20% split.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
80% comes
But
from
let's
Visit and 20%.
So
from
the
chamber.
8,000 comes from 20% of $40,000.
Yeah, but are you suggesting the annual lease would be $8,000 or what do you, I'm just.
No, I'm suggesting that they pay $8,000 would be their portion of the
Of the change.
Oh, I
$40,000
got you.
lease.
Yeah.
And let me just bring it into perspective because I've been trying to get a handle on your budget and everything. But my figures say that in 21, 22, your income from occupancy tax was $1.4 million or $1,485,000. And also you have, according to 22, you have a $1.3 million, it says net asset. Is that a reserve fund?
So a lot of that is in board restricted funds. And you
What do you mean
heard me
board
just
restricted?
talk about this Tuesday at the Rotary meeting, that during COVID, there was so much money coming in because we were just overrun with visitors here. And the board used the funds, the extra funds that were coming in above and beyond our budget and set it aside. And we're doing things like paying for the reverberation of the entrance signs into town, $43,000 toward the dog park. I mean, the
I
car
understand
charge.
that.
I mean, we can just go on and on with the
I
list of
understand that,
things.
Kate.
Okay, let me finish.
Okay,
That are paying for.
okay.
So those funds now are pretty much spent because it was COVID funds that were kind of built up. And Visit Highlands can afford to pay a lease. The chamber cannot. The chamber funds are only for members, chamber members paying, our businesses paying to be a part of the organization. Literally, guys, we will have to move out.
Well,
I mean, we
well,
can't afford it.
let me get back to this, okay? And y'all doing all of these things, and I've heard over the years, well, you can only spend things on promotion of tourism a la your 1985 enabling legislation. And now I see that y'all doing other things. It seems to me that we need to get with the county and go back like Buncombe County and other places where we could change the enabling legislation that would give you much more flexibility to where certainly you could pay for bathrooms that tourists use and things like that. And you could actually, like some of the TDAs now, spend money on capital infrastructure projects that promote and support the tourist industry. So
Anything
I'm
that
just
can
looking at all this
that
money, and I'm just saying, and we're getting hung up on $40,000 for bathroom on Main Street.
and
which was the original
$40,000
trigger.
wasn't what the rent was. It was somewhere between 50 and 60.
I hear
So
that.
let's just, the last paperwork that I got was $50,000. The chamber can't afford it.
Can I ask you
Period.
this other
Nothing's
question?
changed, guys. I've been talking to you about this for like 3 years
I
now.
understand, but let me ask you this question. Does the chamber board vote on how the room tax money spent?
Yes, they do. And the TDC, Brian is the chairman, oversees all of that.
But they don't
And what
vote.
are we doing?
vote.
We're
We
paying
oversee.
for all the hanging baskets downtown. We're redoing the dog park. I mean, this is just this past year.
I understand that.
So you guys are getting a ton of money from us, just not in the form of a lease.
Well, here's the thing, Kate. There are a lot of different ways of setting up these TDAs. And, there'd be other ways that money could be allocated and so forth. But I hear you are unwilling to go back and do any enabling legislation. The county is unwilling.
So
But
you
I'd like to
start
see it
messing
done.
with, start messing with the county, Pat.
I will.
And see what
No,
I
happens
will mess
to
with the county. Hold on.
71% of the occupancy tax that is brought into this county
Yes, ma'am.
will not come to Highlands.
Why not?
Turn it into a county
I've
TDA.
heard that. I've heard that year
So
after
you want to
year.
test that?
Well, let me just say this. The selling point of all of this is, we get so much sales tax. We get 1.6 million. The county, last time I checked, and in your stuff, it's at least 12 million or more. Why would they take that money and divert it somewhere else that might hurt the ability to raise sales tax here that the county gets? So I've heard this before, that we can't question anything because the county would take the money. They might, but I'd be very surprised and disappointed if that was the way that was done.
But you're going to test it.
Okay.
You're going to see
Okay, let's-
if they're going to actually send 71%.
Sometimes we do need to
up.
push the boundaries. Sometimes
Well,
we do.
You won't get any lease money that way, let me tell you.
That's what you say.
So let me bring something up. Here's the crux of it. And I think I was not here. I was here, but I wasn't sitting at this table. I was over there a year ago listening to this, and I pay in the 20s per square foot for my office space. I'm across the street from you. But my building was not given to the town for the purpose of the chamber. I put in $40,000, $50,000 into leasehold improvements. How much have you all put into leasehold improvements?
Over the years, it's.
Several 100,000. Yeah.
Oh. Last count, $350,000, $400,000. I mean, it's a huge amount of money. Brian can attest to the condition the building was in when the chamber
No,
got
it
it.
was
I know.
I wasn't
I know.
there.
No,
He was.
I'm very familiar with the building. I did the
Yeah.
restaurant when it turned to Nick's. But the thing I'm wondering about is still, I understand what Pat is saying about going back to the county. In the current county board, that scares me to death, period. I'll just say that. But what I will say, and I'm not saying that it's not an answer, but mine at $27 a square foot per year for my space at 1,400 square feet. It's a good deal, but I'm not, I'm not leaving, but I'm also not, I'm not thinking I've got a great deal. But what I'm getting at with that is, again, I only put 50,000 into it when I moved in 13. And at that time, but the building was privately owned. It's been sold since. I have a new landlord, but it was not given to my landlord for me to be in. I mean, it was not, they paid $1.3 million for my building. If we had paid $1.3 million for your building,
I could understand.
your rent would, then I would understand it, but I don't understand. I mean, the $40,000 for the dog park, all these other things that are coming in, you're finding ways to give money back to the town.
Yes.
And that's the way I view it. It was given to the town for that purpose. And now we're trying to make it not a for-profit, but well, technically we have nothing in it. You did the leasehold improvements.
Yes.
We pay insurance. Is that correct? We have coverage because
We
we own.
pay insurance.
Well, I know you do, but we do too as the building owner, I'm sure. It's part of our overall policy. And you're the leaseholder, so you have GLI and all that sort of stuff. But my view is exactly as Brian's is. I'm just saying, and the current county commissioners, I do not feel comfortable going back to them and trying, because
Okay.
that's my feeling.
It goes back to what I said. This all got triggered off when said, and I know Kay says, the attorney says, you can't pay for bathroom cleaning. If that had been accepted, then I don't think we'd be having this discussion now. But it does get down to what can be spent and what can't be spent according to the enabling legislation. So, and I know tomorrow morning I'm going to catch a lot of grief from this because I've asked these questions, but it's overdue that we need to have a full airing of what kind of money we're talking about, who's spending it, and how this comes about. And that's, my feeling about it.
Bob, have you had a conversation with the county attorney at all on this matter?
Yeah.
So it's been well over a year. I did have a conversation with the county attorney. I also consulted with the School of Government. And while I understand the bathroom cleaning argument, I don't understand that occupancy tax can't be used to pay rent. And of course, money is fungible. So, and the School of Government, Chris McLaughlin, says this is a no-brainer. You got to pay salaries, you got to pay for computers, you got to pay for office space to run the tourism activity. And again, I'm not advocating for what you should do. That's your call. But if they up and left because you as a board insisted on paying rent, I would assume they're going to pay rent somewhere else. So I don't get why paying overhead to support the tourism expenditures is somehow illegal. In my opinion, it just is not. I'm finding the argument difficult to even process. I get if you're talking about bathrooms, but if you're just talking about rent to house the tourism activity, and I'm kind of repeating myself here, that's overhead. And the School of Government agrees with me.
So the tourism part isn't a problem. This is what I've been saying over and over. Our expenses are shared. We can afford it on the occupancy tax side. The tourism piece of it is the chamber side of the business that we don't have that much money coming in as a membership dues from our businesses to pay that. It's just that simple.
You said it was 80-20, correct? And sorry for my ignorance, but which is
No.
which?
Well, 80 is obviously the visitor piece of it, the tourism piece of it.
Okay.
That's, I mean, we
Right.
spend a huge
Understand.
amount of time.
Understand. I
Most
just
of our
want, that's what I
staff
thought. I
focused
just
on
wanted
it.
to make sure
Right.
as we're talking about this.
Right.
If the county attorney says, and I mean, then we would have paid for the dog park. You wouldn't have found other ways to give money. I'm just saying that's, but
Right.
if the county attorney says there's no reason within the documentation that you can't pay $50,000 rent from the Visit Highlands, is this an issue?
Yes, because the chamber is also housed there. And that is a part of the cost of the building,
20%.
the
Right,
20%
That's where
of
my
it.
$8,000
No, that's,
came from.
well, yeah,
Okay.
I'm asking the question. Like I said, I was not here a year ago.
I thought
in
the
this role.
county attorney said rent was a legitimate expense.
I don't know what their conversation was. I wasn't there.
I understand he said the bathrooms was not, but overhead was a legitimate expense in the rent. And I don't think anybody has a problem. And I'm not talking about the 1.4 or 1.6 or whatever it is of occupancy tax. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you look at your 990 and it's a little bit difficult to decipher because you do both of them in the same EIN number.
Right.
But it looks to me like where you say membership dues and your amount was $101,000, 295, and this is in 22, which is the latest one that I was able to find.
Right.
And then the other one was the 1.4. I'm not talking about the 1.4,
Mhm.
1.48 or something, whatever it is. I'm talking about the $100,000 and the fact that if you pay 20% of, the only figure I have ever heard, Kay, is $40,000 because that's what it costs us to do those bathrooms.
Okay, well, the last paperwork that I got from the town, it was 50-something thousand dollars.
Yeah, I
for
don't
a
know.
lease,
I don't
so-
have any idea where that came from. It was because it was all based, huh? I don't either. Yeah, it was all based on the fact that it was so expensive to do those bathrooms in the
Mhm.
center of town because and most of the commercial businesses were taking advantage of those bathrooms. So I guess my thing was the $800,000, which is 20% of $40,000 at $20 a square foot seemed a reasonable amount. The board has already said they don't mind paying rent. You're saying that the chamber can't afford it. And I'm trying to understand why out of $100,000, the chamber can't afford $8,000.
Because
in
the
rent.
chamber has other expenses.
I know,
other
and I
than
can't figure out what they are because they're all
lease.
lumped in together here.
Yep. I'm always willing to share budgets.
Well, you
But-
shared the budget for the Visit Highlands before, but it didn't have the chamber budget part of it.
Right, the chamber is a member
It's a
organization, so it's, right, It's different.
Right, so it's
but it
different.
still has the same
I know, it's
expenses
that, and yet you
and,
pay 20% of your salary, 20%, I don't know, probably 100% of the visitor people salary from the
that
visitor
all
tax.
comes out of occupancy tax.
Right, right.
Not out of chamber.
Right. So, and that's what I'm saying. If you're paying 20% of utilities, I'm giving you an extra $500 a year of utilities. So I'm talking about $8,500 as a rent for the space that you use at $20 a square foot. I don't understand why every other business in town has to pay some sort of square footage. And that reminds me, I'm not sure, haven't seen any documentation that when Gus gave the building that it was for the chamber as opposed to the visitor center.
That was
And I
for,
don't know.
from the anonymous donor that was
Yeah.
the real donor. And it was for the use of the chamber.
Well, and I don't understand, I haven't seen any documentation about that, so I don't know if they're assuming the chamber and the visitor center is the same thing, or whatever it is, I don't know. So it's hard for me to pin that down as that being saying, oh yeah, they said it had to be used for the chamber, because a lot of people don't differentiate that, chamber and visitor center. Anyway, that's,
I don't think there is any.
I think the whole, trying to break it down into you use this much square footage and they use that much square footage is just semantics. I mean, I've always said that the building itself, if it were to go out for lease to anybody, ought to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $3,500 a month. $3,500 a month, it's $42,000 a year, which is less than what Kay says she got from us at a 50,000 a year. It's essentially where we are in cost for the bathrooms, if you want to bring the bathrooms back into it. I'm not even for bringing the bathrooms back into it because I think the building is worth X on rent. And to me, it doesn't matter that, I've got this office, but we're reserving this space, but, if we need a little, store your stuff over here. I mean, it's kind of getting to,
But the town could have put
Splitting
that
hairs over-
$400,000 into the building and we'd have nothing right now.
We wouldn't have put it in there because we wouldn't.
Yeah, you would have, because the roof leaked. It was
We wouldn't
terrible.
have taken the
And the roof's
donation if we'd
leaking
we'd had
again.
a business.
Right,
We
they-
could-
they wouldn't-
Well, why would we accepted the donation though? What do you mean we wouldn't have accepted it?
Knowing you had put 400 in it.
No, just
Well,
like.
sure we
the
did. We
playhouse.
accepted it.
Well, I know.
but there was discussion at the time about how much money had to go into the building.
So we put all the money in and then you charge us a lease.
You improved it to where it
But
has
you've had
value.
the building for how many years?
I don't know what year was it,
Well,
2012, 13, somewhere in there.
but it doesn't matter. We're still maintaining your building. It's still your asset.
It's a
It's still
triple net
worth
lease.
a lot more money.
Well, yeah, that happens in.
Common.
And we support the
Rental
town
scenario.
in multiple ways. So you're getting your money. It's just not coming through a lease.
We got last year's.
We're
grant on
happy
dog
to
park.
do anything to
I-
help our town.
I asked the exact same question. Why didn't the visitor center pay all the lease and then give you a sublease for $0? And I was explained that, no, they're very strict about making sure that they have that 20/80 divide. Probably for,
Strict about
the board is very strict about it.
It's the way we break down our budget so that it's fair, so the chamber pays their piece of it, the visitor piece of it is paid.
I still
through
think though that the
occupancy tax.
solution to this may be to, and I know I know Buzz, like what you said, and I understand that where you're not willing, or not interested in going back and talking about the bathroom cleaning, but in a way, if the county attorney can come to terms with paying for the restroom cleaning, then this could go away.
It could.
I could almost agree with that, yeah, because that's where it started.
And then it all
Because
comes
the
out of
chamber is
occupancy
breaking-
tax and doesn't impact the chamber. And then that's just something that,
Correct.
The chamber, for the most part, is what is driving the tourist industry in town.
Yeah.
At this point. So they're bringing the people in, the infrastructure, the town infrastructure.
oh, I get
is
it,
what-
yeah.
Yeah,
We are
So-
one of several people bringing people into
well, I
town.
understand that, but you're.
I wish that we were the geniuses doing
you-
all
but
of
you
it,
also
but we're
have-
not.
But you also have $1.5 million in occupancy tax,
1.4 last year.
whatever, yeah.
And,
Well,
and we
1.48,
turned around
almost
and we
1.5.
paid for all kinds of things. We have free
Water.
concerts. there's
Good discussion.
I
a huge
understand that.
list of all the stuff that we do for town.
But we also have, the town has expenses that are.
Yes,
That are
absolutely.
directly related to the number of people walking up and down Main Street.
Yes, with our visitors and our residents. And we try very hard to take away as many of the expenses that you have that we can. We have been doing this for a number of years and we've been trying to be supportive.
And I understand that, but those are all discretionary funds. In other words, if you have a down year, you decide not to do the flower baskets only does. We don't have discretionary funds. If we have to pick up the
So
garbage, what,
if
7
our
days a week on the.
occupancy tax goes down, we can't pay rent either.
Well, you just do a little less advertising.
Yeah, or less advertising.
Less
or-
advertising, we hardly do any now. I mean, I'll give you a copy of our budget. It's not like we're spending
there's-
thousands and
we would-
thousands
we
of
would-
dollars on magazine ads.
We
But
would love,
most everything goes right back
can-
into
okay.
this town.
Yeah.
we would love to see your budget. every
I
year.
would,
And I would
every
think that
time,
information.
I'm like,
we
I'll
would
give you
love-
the budget.
We would love to see what you send to the county and documenting everything. We don't ever get any of that. It's kind of.
Happy to share it with you.
Okay.
Brian
It should
sees
be-
it
should
every
be
quarter.
shared every year.
I-
It's kind of
yeah.
a
I,
routine.
yeah, I still think the solution to this is if the county attorney can come to terms on the restroom cleaning,
That's the perfect solution.
that's the
Yeah.
solution to it.
So can we just make a suggestion that
Yes.
our attorney speaks with the county attorney and finds out, first off, why is that a problem in any way, shape or form, and figure out a solution so that it doesn't have to be the chamber?
Yeah.
Because the only way you're going to get money where the chamber is raise chamber dues. You're gonna have to jack that up, which I'm not, I mean, I've paid it for 31
Your
years.
business, right?
Yeah, and I paid chamber dues for 31 years and jack mine up 25% so that you can pay rent for a building that was donated to you. I kind of have a problem with it. But if we can figure out a way to use Visit Highlands and let the visitors actually pay for the
that.
facility, I don't have an issue with that.
Yeah.
As long as the chamber doesn't have to pay anything. And if this is the solution, then let's ask our attorney
I
to
say
speak
we
with them.
I
could.
think,
pursue
Bob, are
that.
you willing to, talk with the county attorney over this idea that they can't pay for bathrooms?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And can I be a part of that conversation?
I think I prefer to talk with the attorney directly.
Okay.
Just look,
I mean, you're relying on him for
I am.
your position, so you're saying he's the decision maker, so he's who I need to talk to.
Then we'll report back at the
Yeah.
next meeting.
there we go.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kid.
All right. Our next item will be the Greenway Utility Building Plan.
Mhm.
Eric?
nothing's really changed, other than we got, go ahead with it. The Greenway's looking to build a building on the lot behind Pullman.
Where, I'm sorry, Eric, I didn't hear that.
The town lot behind the rec park.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The town has a shed there already they built, I forget how many years ago, we built to store everything. It's gonna be off to the side of it, looking to do like I think 12 by 20 building.
Will there be restrooms there?
No. There will be no plumbing.
And
Or-
But there is a big pine tree, so help yourself.
will the existing building stay and this one's added to it?
The
Or will it-
existing building is the town's building. This is gonna be completely different.
Oh, okay, just adjacent to
It's
it.
just gonna be off to the side of it.
Got it.
Aerial
is up there if you want.
Yeah, so you can see the town building right there. And if you go to your left with your mouse, just kind of.
That's the storage building right there. We built it.
So it's just a poured 16 by 20
Yeah.
slab with a metal building,
No, I'm gonna do a stick-built building,
stick built?
yes.
So question for you, the existing building is there, just give me a sense of scale. What size roughly is that building?
Oh, that's probably, what is?
16 by 24?
No, that's like 24 by, yeah, it's.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's,
So this-
it's big.
so this is the guest house.
Yeah, this is the outhouse.
Okay, to the left.
Yeah,
This is the garden tool room.
yeah. So basically, it's just gonna be like I say, I think it's 16 by 20, I think is what I have, or 12 by 20, figured. We're just gonna pour a slab and build a building on it, and it's just put shelves and stuff to store all the Greenway equipment in and everything. We will have electric, just so we can recharge batteries and have light in there, because we're not looking to do any windows or anything like that. It's just gonna be,
Right, well, just out of curiosity, I assume that our building has power.
yes. It does.
So are you just planning on pulling a circuit out of it?
Lamar's already looked at it, and we'll probably just pull a separate service over. Because they have a pole right,
Yeah, well,
off to the right
I'm
of their
just-
building, yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's at least 100 amp service on a building that has almost no electrical needs.
Right.
Could we not just pull a circuit off that
Probably.
small sub
Probably
panel and
so.
not have to do
I
all
haven't
that?
looked at what they had, their panel
Yeah.
boxes.
I mean,
so.
that's up to the town.
Yeah.
But the rest of y'all, but I mean, if Lamar thinks it works, I'd pull.
Yeah, I would just.
I'd
run
pull a
one up
circuit or
under
two
theirs.
over from it and not
Exactly,
have a whole nother service
Yeah.
for a building.
exactly. So
For-
we just hadn't looked at the electrical.
Yeah. Well, that's my suggestion.
Yeah.
I would say if staff is good with the location, if Lamar's good with it and Josh is good with it,
Yeah.
I have no issue with it whatsoever.
So and we're just moving off to the left because they have a little paved down through there. Cause I talked to him more about it, and he said that actually it's kind of, we could even just build on the side of it, but they have windows in that building, so just,
Yeah, just come.
it's just
Okay.
cheaper and easier just to be
Yeah.
a separate building and
Well,
stuff. So-
from a cheaper standpoint, I
Yeah.
think we should look into the circuit off of it and just
Yeah, exactly.
not have a power bill
Right.
minimum every single month for
Yeah.
that building too.
Okay,
So Eric, is the Greenway, folks willing to do essentially a quick claim to the improvements? I mean, we're saying that's going to be a Greenway building,
Right.
or is the town going to own it?
Well, it's on town property and Greenway's part of the town, so I mean,
Technically, the town will own it.
the town
Yeah.
will own it, I guess. I'm.
Town-
Well,
Yeah,
I think we should have an acknowledgement that it's a town building. So we don't get into a Chamber of Commerce situation 30 years from now, where none of us are here. And
So the Greenway's paying for it or is it?
Greenway's paying.
Yeah, so. Yeah, but it's on town property, so anything on town. property.
yeah, I don't suspect the Greenway's gonna go anywhere in the next few years, but if they do,
Right.
Well, and so if a building is built, it's on town property, it's going to be built by the Greenway. The town owns the building and we have an understanding, a memo of understanding that it's used exclusively for the
For
Greenway.
Greenway.
And if the Greenway ceases to exist, it reverts back to the town.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's exclusive use of the Greenway.
And in 10 years, you got to start paying rent.
It's kind of like when the track or something, it's still up to town.
Yeah, the MR
yeah.
belongs to the town. They use it anytime they need it.
okay. So basically, we would approve this contingent on a memorandum of understanding about the ownership and so forth. Is that what you're?
I'm making a motion that we approve the construction of up to a 12 by 20 for exclusive use for the Greenway, for their storage. And it will be a town building, obviously, but we have a memo of understanding that it is for their exclusive use unless they no longer exist, and then it reverts back to us.
I think
Okay.
At their
having that,
expense.
They're built at their expense.
Right.
having that in the minutes is probably more
Ample.
likely to find it than
It's
a memo of
ample.
understanding
Yeah.
in 20 years.
And hopefully soon you'll be able to find it later.
Okay,
And I'm not voting on this. 'cause-
Right.
okay.
So that's the
You don't
motion.
have any financial.
Got a motion on the floor. Any further
I'm building
discussion?
buildings.
Second.
Oh.
We have a second.
I'm not building them.
Got a second? Do we have any more discussion before I call the vote? Hearing none, all in favor signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Okay, and Commissioner Pearson did not vote?
Right.
He recused. Okay,
Yeah.
Although technically it doesn't have to get no
He
financial
recused because
interest
he's
in
doing
it.
the
Yeah.
work.
Yes.
So,
It's
The
a
contract.
vote.
all right,
Yeah.
very good.
Not if he has a conflict of interest.
you know.
He doesn't.
Yes, though.
Yeah.
What's that?
You don't have a financial interest. You can quite possibly it goes the opposite direction.
Yeah.
You didn't have to recuse.
It's costing me more.
He's the contractor.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's gonna get paid less than what it costs, I promise.
Yeah.
All right, our next item, item 12, town website discussion, and let me start this off. I've gotten feedback and I've had folks from the public and some commissioners that it's time to look at our website design and how we operate our website. And I think that was really brought home during this Hurricane Helene. And let me just say, I've been operating it with Heritage Productions, Matt Ebrett's Ask Mary Pat website. And I will just tell you, I probably have put $7,000 to $8,000 into that operation since 2021. I found it to be very helpful in that working with Heritage Productions, I can make quick responses and get out information to the public. And I've been willing to do that. And I think that communication factor that I have is of great benefit. I'll just tell you, during the Hurricane Helene, we were kind of paralyzed with our website. I was able to get information out and make videos and post them And finally, after several days, we were able to set up a thing where there was a link to where somebody could go to our homepage, they could go to my website where I was doing all of these videos and so forth. I will just say this. A representative of Governor Cooper's cabinet called me up that week after the thing and complimented me. He said, you know, the way Governor Cooper has been tracking what's going on in Highlands, he watches your website and getting your updates.
Absolutely.
Had 13,000 people watching that. So I'm just going to put that in. And the guy was the person who was the state head of the Department of Revenue, Ron Penny, was saying, you know, this is kind of a model about how communities can communicate with their constituents and so forth. So, you know, I continue to have that website, but I think it's time that we have a redo of our website in many directions to where we're able to provide easy access to information, records and things like that, minutes of meetings, and also have a system where we can communicate with the public the way I'm doing with my website. Eventually, I'd like to get out of the website business. So that's, you know, my perspective on this. It's time to reevaluate what we're doing with our website. I think it could be a potential new tool for communicating with the residents of Highlands. So I know, Jeff, Commissioner, I'm gonna put you on the spot. Since you've taken office, you've expressed similar concern.
Yeah, so for various reasons, but actually, Commissioner Dotson had sent out an email to us with several examples of some other towns. But being in the design business, I will tell you that the starting point, though, it's not like we're switching the format, we're switching how we do it completely, and how we, with information, et cetera. But the way you start design is you start with a program, and a program is what do you want to accomplish? So, you know, like you mentioned quite a few points. One of them is easy access, easily navigable. One of them is, and I use this as an example, but even it doesn't go far enough, in my opinion, like the county website. You can go on there, you can go to commissioner's meeting. I can find the minutes from a 2018 meeting. I can watch it. I can read the minutes. I can see the agenda from the meeting and all the handouts, and it's at my fingertips. Now theirs is a little cumbersome, but they have a lot of information. But then there's other sites. There was one in particular that I really liked, that Commissioner Dotson sent out that was for Aspen. I realize that's apples and oranges, but from a website standpoint, it's very easy to navigate. Whether you're new to town, you've been on the website 100 times, and you just want to learn about Highlands, it had links to things like the chamber, things like other organizations, et cetera. But the biggest thing about it is, one, information, like you said, and I hire people to do websites. I don't know anything about them. So what I think we need is advice. One is, we've seen examples of what works. We're going to have a company to do it, obviously, so a firm, whatever the case might be. But we also, like anything else, I would go to the experts and ask them how we get there. So whether or not we have significant number of local people in this town that have a lot of experience in this area. Several of them contacted me as soon as everybody got their cell phones back about the town website, and asked, like, we need to look at different ways of not just this, but on a daily basis. So there are people in this community that, even if it takes, this is not something we're going to have done by November, December. This is going to be a building item. So I think if we're going to do it, we do it right. We start with the planning stage. We get it done in 6, 7 months, 8 months, maybe it's up and running and it's glitch free, let's say, for all intensive purposes. But I think we can, I just think we need to start with experts that do this on a regular basis and advise us on what would you do? How would you handle it? And whether or not there's just a small group of 5 that get together, or 3 that get together and talk about it and advise. I certainly have names that are full-time, residents that can help us. They'll be here through the winter, et cetera. And then figure out how to implement it and with who. So I know we have great options here. I know the one, what Matt Evers did for you is great. So certainly an option there, but also a good person to have on an advisory role in the beginning. So that's just my thoughts on it.
Okay.
Second, those exact
Well,
thoughts.
yeah, I definitely think we need a professional,
Yeah.
somebody who knows what they're doing. The one suggestion I would have is I happen to, know a town in Florida that has an electric system too, and they have an outage map, like
Mhm.
Haywood has and Duke has and everything. We have an electric system and we ought to have an outage map too.
That's why I think it's time to have a fresh look at the
Mhm.
way we're.
Agreed.
designing.
Because people want to come up on the weekend and they want to know whether they have power or not,
Right. So
Could somebody, could staff come back with a recommendation on who, whether that's, hopefully we could keep it local and, come back with some ideas on how to pursue that?
I'll speak for Josh on this. If this board thinks we need to redo the website and embody what we're talking about, have been talking about, I would suggest we direct our town manager to, start moving toward,
can I make a motion?
Yeah.
I think we need to have a completely new website, ground up, but go ahead.
Let me make a comment. I'm certainly not a website genius, but I've done multiple websites from the ground up. I don't think it's going to take 4 or 5 or 6 months. It ought to take us, municipality and government moving slow.
That was, I took that into.
Certainly, the first thing that happens when you develop a website is you have to have essentially a schematic of where you want to go. And anybody that we would hire is going to have to do that. They're going to ask us for input and develop, how far out it needs to go. The main problem I have with our current website is, number one, it's redundant to the max. And as far as the mayor's concerned, it sends you off to another website to find what during the hurricane was the most important information that needed to be found. And everything needs to be handled on the town website. We probably would do great to find somebody local because we need to have the nimbleness to call up that person and say, hey, we need to put this up. Here's the power outage. Here's the road closure. Here's the water break, whatever it is that the town message that we need to get out. Now, there may be a national company. I don't know if y'all noticed of the websites that I sent, 3 or 4 of them look almost exactly the same. That's probably because they're being built by the same company from a template. And the vast majority of websites these days are built from templates. So you're just going in, kind of filling in the blanks, filling in the colors, putting whatever graphics you want on there, and boom, there it is. So what point I was trying to make other than,
They look the same.
well, they look the same, but it's a very familiar scenario. So when you go, when somebody new goes to the website, it's easy to determine where it is that they want to go, rather than looking up here at some drop downs or looking over here and click on some leaves, or, and getting to the bottom, but there's another list down there, that kind of thing. I mean, it's very intuitive across the board to anybody. And as the town tries to find somebody to do that, we really need to find somebody that is familiar with municipal website building. We're not gonna, I don't think we ought to be looking at somebody that, here's the website for my photography. We're not going to be able to find somebody that's going to be able to convert a website for their photography or their jewelry or their retail store and make it a municipal website. It's just not going to be as sparky as it ought to be.
Sparky.
But it also needs to be one that is easily updated in-house.
Yeah, that's why I say it needs to
People
be
with
local,
access.
or we need to have somebody in-house.
Because all you need is administrative.
Or multiple people in-house, so we're not in a situation where someone's on vacation and then you can't update it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I'm 1,000% for
Yeah.
that. If we
Because-
can get somebody in-house that can make the changes, you know, if the
Yeah.
mayor
they
calls
have-
in
You
and
need
says,
to-
hey, we got a
You
road
need to have
closure, let's.
you need to have multiple administrators in-house, just from a standpoint of having that access, but, and make it redundant in a way that if Gibby puts the minutes up for everybody and they're public now, then it gets put up, but it also, it's available to the public, but it's also, she doesn't have to do it 6 times and then send it to the sunshine list and then,
Yeah,
you know. So,
okay.
So currently, just so you know, the setup, Cube Logic out of Asheville is who designed the website. And a number of years ago, I don't know how long it's been now. And we just pay him to do maintenance. So anything we need him to do throughout the year, he can change something, which there's not been obviously many changes done. A lot of the pictures are very old pictures. I mean, there's one place where you've got a picture of the new fire department, one picture where you've got a picture of the old fire department. So I think that, you know, each department needs to have their page and that department be able to go on there and make their changes and update to their page.
That's gonna be real hard to do and keep it consistent.
Well, I'd like
If
to
you've
hear
got the
y'all,
police departments making changes to their page and the fire department's making changes to their page, electrical department, that's gonna get real wacky. Just from a,
So I guess
Administrative
my
point of
question
view.
is, do we want to have Cube Logic continue to do it, or do we want to try to
I'd go another
find
direction.
someone?
yeah,
that is
I think
local?
we need to start fresh
Yeah, that ship
from the
has-
ground up.
Yep.
And the fact that it's been so long and they haven't gotten back to us and said, hey, we need to freshen your website,
Yeah.
just purely tells me that they're not the people that we need going forward.
Although I do believe though, they're like staying local, someone that understands the culture of this community. And all those dynamics would be beneficial.
And let me reinforce, I want
Yeah.
something that's responsive, that we don't have to call some company cross-country or something. We need to be able to respond and be fluid in keeping connected with the community.
so after hearing the whole discussion, I want to make a motion that we task staff, Josh particularly, with coming back with recommendations on potential companies, firms that specialize in this and advise us at the next meeting.
Second.
Okay? Got a second?
Yeah, I think that's good because I think municipal, because every municipality has kind of the same information type stuff that needs to
For
go
the most
out there.
Okay,
So anything that we would not be able to think of off the top of our head, they probably already have thought of.
Right.
okay. We have a motion on the floor
In a second.
and a second. I'll call the question. All in favor, please indicate by raising your hand and saying
Aye.
aye. Thank you. Josh, you'll proceed with developing a concept and proposal for us. Thank you. All right, that's the end of the agenda. My last item is adjournment. Do
I
we,
make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
second, all in favor? We're
Aye.
adjourned. Thank you.
Yes, I'll be contacting you.